Hi everyone, Dr. Clayson here. Welcome to week 5. This week we're talking about multimodality. We'll be reading 2 pieces about multimodality this week, and this video is going to kind of give you a bit of context about those pieces and kind of define some terms that I hope will be helpful as you are reading these articles. The readings, as per usual, are long and full of jargon because you were not the original intended audience. So if you were struggling with them, be sure to start them early and read them more than once if you need to. So let's start out by defining some terms. I'm going to begin with mode, and the definition is going to kind of start out vague and then be made clearer by, I'm going to give you several examples. So a mode is the abstract thing through which meaning is communicated in the world. So examples, meaning can be communicated through words, whether spoken or written, through music, through gesture, through images, through space. So as an example of space as a modality, think about what a traditional classroom communicates about the practice of education. Often in your classrooms, you've probably been in a classroom where there are several rows of individual desks facing a single direction, usually toward the instructor area, and this instructor area is going to incorporate, maybe a desk, a tallish desk, or a lectern, or maybe it's like a computer module or something like that, where the instructor might use a computer as a teaching aid, but the students are facing this way, the teacher is facing the other way, and the students are all kind of sitting by themselves looking at the teacher. So this is reflective of the idea that education is a solitary enterprise for the student, and that learning is kind of transmitted from the expert, the instructor, to individual novices in their individual chairs. This might seem like a weird example because, classrooms aren't really designed to communicate something about education, they just do. And this one particular example of a classroom, there are several different types of classroom setups, but each one can communicate something slightly different about the expectations in that particular classroom for how education is supposed to work. So for another example, think about the mode language. Language can be used to communicate through many different physical objects, through different media. So in the case of the Kress and the Hull and Nelson readings, a medium is kind of like the object through which a mode is presented. So this could be a physical paper book. It's a book from your week 2 readings. Or it could be a book on a Kindle app on an iPad, or something like that. The exact nuances of what medium means in the field of semiotics, which is where a lot of this work comes from, are more complicated, but this definition is going to serve our purposes for this class. You can think of mode as the abstract part of how meaning is communicated, language, image, space, sound, and medium is the technology or the physical presence through which that meaning is communicated. After all, a book is a technology, just like an iPad, even if the technology-ness of a book has been made more transparent over the years. Okay, so we've got mode and medium. Now let's talk about affordances. Both Hull and Nelson and Kress talk about affordances, and this is a term that's actually come out of research on human vision, and it refers to all of the possible actions someone can perceive in a human environment. So all of the possible things someone can do that they can perceive through their vision. So Donald Norman famously took this idea and applied it to design, saying that even everyday objects have particular affordances or actions that they invite the user to take. So if you think about a coffee mug, the handle here invites a user to hold the cup in a particular way to help them from getting burnt. As a side note, there's a really great video from Vox about something called Norman doors. That's a door with a really fancy handle that doesn't really communicate to you whether you should pull the door or push the door. I'll link to it in the module content so you can watch it if you want to. I think it's really funny, but it's not required reading or anything. So back to multimodality. How do affordances relate to multimodality? Well, each mode affords a communicator different tools for meaning making. So if you think about that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, that's kind of speaking to the power of an image to kind of say a lot of things all at once. It kind of seems to be privileging images over words, but let's also give words some credit too. They're pretty powerful as well. One of the things that Hull and Nelson, and maybe Crest too to a lesser extent, point out in their articles is the power of the book and the written word in the Western educational systems over the last several centuries. As another example, music too has its own kind of power to communicate things in ways that words and images can't. So multimodality means putting these different modes together, hence the multi in multimodality. The Hull and Nelson reading, which I'd suggest you read first, gives a really detailed analysis of how a particular digital artifact demonstrates the semiotic, or meaning-making, power of multimodality. They analyze a digital story that uses spoken language, music, written words, and images, all different kinds of modes, to create a kind of meaning that couldn't be made in the same way with any of these individual modes on their own. So this is one of the big points about multimodality, that using multiple modes at once means that meaning is created in different ways than any of these modes by themselves. Hull and Nelson, and Crest to a slightly lesser degree, argue that in the digital age, multimodality is all around us more than ever before. That might be true, but let's take the Hassian approach and be critical here and not buy into myths about technology. What are the precise ways that things are different because of these technologies, and how might multimodality have been with us all along? Dr. Chad Wickman, who was actually a student of Hass's, has written about how multimodality is present in scientific texts long before the recent multimodality craze that came about in the field of writing studies because of the sudden proliferation of the internet. So Dr. Wickman's study looks at lab notebooks in a chemistry lab and looks at all of the different modes that these chemists are using to make meaning in their notebooks. So it's important to think about multimodality in a balanced way, not necessarily saying, oh, this is super new and the internet makes it, totally new and interesting and different and powerful, but still recognizing that new technologies do present new and different opportunities for multimodality. It's a bit of a balancing act. You don't want to be so, convinced of the all-powerfulness of digital writing as a space for multimodality, because multimodality has been around for a while, but you also want to recognize that there are new and different ways to make meaning in these new digital spaces. So it's a bit of a balancing act. For this class, what I'd like you to take away from these readings is mostly the really critical way they conduct their analyses of various modes and media. We'll be doing a bit of that in our discussion this week, and I'll expect you to incorporate ideas about and practices of multimodality in your projects throughout the rest of the semester. So as you're reading these readings, you can think about how the texts themselves are multimodal. How do the texts incorporate language, space, and image to create meaning? Additionally, you can think about how this video or the web pages for our online class incorporate multiple modes. Multimodality is one of those things you'll start seeing everywhere now that you've learned about it. That's it for now. Happy reading.